Hi guys, welcome back to Chess the Matthew. So on this video, we'll tackle about the Sicilian Najdorf and the Opovcensky Variation. So the set opening start with the move of e4 and after c5. The idea of c5 here is to prevent any further d4 push, because any d4 push of white, the black here will simply grab that d4 pawn. So the white here plays the move knight f3 to support any d4 push, so that for example if the black here will capture, there is a simple knight takes to d4, and after this knight moves, it also vacates the f1 square, so that later on the king here can immediately castle on the king side, and also it supports the center for example, so that this pawn on e4 can also push on the e5 square and gain a lot of space advantage against the enemy's camp. So the black here will play d6 to stop that idea, so that there is no e5 push of white here, and again it controls the center and opening up some lines for his bishop on c8, with an idea later on to play the move bishop to g4 or even play to bishop to e6. But the white here will play d4 to open up some lines again for his bishop, and we shall see in this position now that the white here is most likely active with these pawns on the center, and again gaining up some space advantage on the center. So the black here will grab that pawn on d4 after c takes d4, so that after knight takes d4, regaining back the pawn deficit of white, although it controls a lot of vital square against the enemy's comp. But after knight f6, with the idea of this d6, there is no further e5 push here, because the black here can actually win this pawn through d takes to e4 or even queen e5 check with a double attack to the king and pawn. So after knight f6 attacking this independent pawn of white, the white here will develop his piece to control the center with his knight on c3, and again defending his pawn against from the attack of the knight on f6. But after this position, with this knight on c3 and knight to d4, and also with bishop to f1, which is actually eyeing to this b5 square, the idea of Najdorf here is to play the move a6, so that it actually stop any hop of the knight on b5 square, or even bishop to b5 to give a check on the b5 square. So after a6, the black here will simply play bishop to e2 to vacate his f1 square, so that later on the king here can castle now on the king side, and again dominating on the board with his bishop on an active square, controlling a lot of that square on the board. But the black here can actually counter to the center after e5, attacking this undefended knight on the d4 with the pawn. So after knight b3, a retreat, but it allows here to gain a tempo for the black perspective, because the black here can simply place bishop to e7, vacating also the f8 square, so that the black here can do the same to have a kingside castling and to put his king into safety. So after kingside castling and also kingside castling for black, the black here actually immediately have an equality on the position, because while the white here will be busy to connect his rook to develop his bishop via a3 or bishop to g5 or even queen to d3, but the black here has some counter chances after playing b5, because after this pawn will be played on b5, it has a threat to show away this knight that actually defend this pawn on e4 against the knight f6, And later on, after this bishop will be developed on the b7 square, it puts some pressure to the e4 pawn with two attackers with the bishop and the knight against this lone knight on c3. And another thing is, after this position, after with e5, the black here can actually again do another thing by pressurizing this e4 pawn by playing d5 and opening up some lines for his bishop. And again, with the idea of rook a8 and bishop to f8 to put some pressure on the e4 pawn. So that's all. I hope you enjoyed this video and please don't forget to subscribe.